So I'm kind of realizing now it may not have been my best decision to start this channel, like when there's no racing. But you know what? I think it's a challenge. It's a challenge I'm willing to take. It's gonna be fun. Oh, oh, what's up? You burned me, Ecclestones. I didn't realize how funny that would be. Anyways, guys, today we're going to be doing a bit of a different video from what I've been doing recently, but first of all, before I get into that, I just want to say thank you to the F1 YouTube community as it is, being so welcoming and so kind as I've, tried to grow my channel up a little bit, and a shout out to two channels in particular. First of all, Moto Meerkat and Tomo F1, just big time. Thank you so much. I did not think that any of this would actually take off in any way, but I have to thank everyone who's kind of supported me so far, and man, I'm feeling the love of the community, and yeah, super grateful, super looking forward to what this channel can turn into. But regardless, let's get into what this video is actually about. So I feel like my creative mind of starting this channel is just kind of flowing because I have so many ideas for different series. We've got the fake Grand Prix, we've got livery redesigns, and now I have another idea to kind of delve into the history books a little bit. For those of you who don't know Formula One very well or kind of want to learn about the history of it, I definitely learned a lot from just planning for this video. Basically, the idea is we're going to be looking back on some legendary drivers and looking at some of the liveries they actually had back in the day. How it's going to work is I'm going to kind of pick my favorite livery from each team they drove for, and then at the end of all of this, we're going to be able to kind of look at what was my favorite of all of them. So today, I started out with a driver who drove a lot and had a lot of cars to choose from. Michael Schumacher, in my opinion, the GOAT. Lewis Hamilton, you're great, but I just think there's something about what Schumacher did. So dominant, so incredible. But yeah, let's take a look at some quick stats of the German. So as we just said, he is German. He won 7 World Drivers' Championships, 91 wins, 155 podiums, total career points at 1,566. He drove for Jordan, Benetton, Ferrari, and Mercedes. And now we're going to go take a look at those liveries. So starting off with the first team he drove for, which unfortunately only lasted for one race. He drove in Belgium and retired, but the Jordan 191 from 1991 was Schumacher's debut. He then went on to race with Benetton in the Benetton 191, which I'm not a fan of, but the Jordan 191 is a stunning car. I love just the simple design being split in half between the green and the blue. Also, I really hope Aston Martin brings the blue back or the green back next year. Yeah, really like green and miss it on the F1 grid. The sponsorships with the 7-Up and the Tic Tac blend in perfectly with the car. Just makes the entire package so easy on the eyes. It also helps that the regulations of 1991 just made the cars look very pleasing to the eyes, very simple, very basic, especially those front wings. And I find that I tend to really like liveries, and you're going to see this as a common theme in this video. I tend to really like liveries that kind of lend themselves to the design aerodynamically of the car, and I think this is just a livery that blends in absolutely perfectly with the car that it's plastered onto. So now moving on to the aforementioned second team that Michael drove for in his career, Benetton. Benetton. My favorite car from the era of Michael driving with them is the Benetton 192 from 1992. It replaced the 191B livery from the first 3 races of the season, and then from that point on, it was the 192. I really didn't like the 191B. I didn't like the blue. It just didn't look as nice as the 192. However, Michael took a dominant stand with this car in the 92 season. He racked up 6 podiums and a race win, bringing the young German home to a 3rd place finish in the WDC. In just his 2nd year in the sport, and after finishing 14th the previous season, which I'd say is a pretty good thing. I think it's pretty good. Now, picking just one of these Benetton cars was extremely difficult. they're all very nice looking. They're all just stunning cars, but I had to pick just one because that's what this whole video is about. And I had to pick the 192. It's the way the yellow blends in with the blue and how the blue and the green just kind of flow from the nose and just cover in the side pod area of the back. Now I know that the 192 and the 193 are very similar. The 192 just kind of gets that next step up for me. There's like this weird candy sponsorship on the side of the 193 that kind of ruins it for me. I also prefer the United Colors of Benetton over the Nordica logo. Just a preference, but the Benetton 192 is my favorite. 93, 94, 95. I know a lot of people would say that those are their favorite liveries that he had. I'm just not a massive fan of the color scheme. I like the design. Not a huge fan of the color scheme. Love the scheme on the 192. The camel with the blue and there's just something about liveries that is so subjective. And it's just, you can't really put into words what makes you like it, but it's a stunning car. So now getting on to the team that Michael Schumacher spent the longest tenure of his career with, because it was literally 10 years with Ferrari. The most dominant a driver-car combo has ever been. 5 straight titles in the early 2000s, with that F2004 just being an absolute rocket ship. But we're here to talk about my favorite one of those 10, which is the last car he actually drove with Ferrari for, which was the 2006 F248 F1. Just love the look of this car, mainly because of the kind of design of the car itself, because as I've mentioned before, the design aerodynamically of the car is kind of what I also look for in a livery. And I found that the early 2000s Ferraris just look very long, very elongated. They didn't do much with the design, whereas with the 248, they perfectly melded those kind of bits of aero around and all over the place in the front wing and everything. And it looks very, very sleek, like a spaceship almost. And how 2000s is it to have a spaceship looking car? Just very nice looking car. And I don't really think I have to explain why I didn't pick the 90s Ferraris, because like that should be pretty obvious. Those things were pretty horrendous. Now, what did he do with this car? Unfortunately, this was kind of on the downturn after Ferrari's dominance. Not to say it wasn't a quick car, because Michael actually only lost out by 13 points to Renault driver Fernando Alonso in the Drivers' Championship, coming in second. But I think he had an idea of where the team was going, so he promptly left for the team we're going to talk about next. Now, in fairness, I actually don't like any of these liveries, but it's the name of the game. I have to pick one of them that I like the most, and it's suffice to say that whoever works designing the Mercedes liveries now definitely did not work for the team when they started up back in the day, because these things are pretty horrendous. But I have to go with the 2011 W02. Of the three, it's my favorite. Unfortunately, it wasn't really a competitive car at all. Mercedes were not nearly as dominant as they are today, with this thing only taking him as high as 4th place and leaving him 8th in the driver's standings at the end of the 2011 season. And just not a great move for him at all. However, I mean, I don't think with the accident, as unfortunate as it was, if he was able to continue racing, I don't think we'd be seeing Lewis chasing down his record, because hot take here, if he continued driving in a perfect world, I think he'd have at least a minimum of 8 titles to his name. And I don't think we'd even be talking about Lewis, being this dominant, because if you put prime Michael in today's Mercedes, that's just scary. I think it'd be way worse than it is now. And for the livery itself, it least offends me because it's just the most simple. The W01 from 2010, I hate that stupid strip of black above the engine cover. I can't stand the black Patron. It just looks like it was a complete rush hack job of a livery. I shouldn't even have to explain that. And as for the 2012 car, I mean, it's not horrible. It was kind of a toss-up between the 02 and the 03 for me, but the one thing I don't like about the 03 is that little blotch of black along the back end of it. Not a huge fan of that. The W02, it's just nice, simple gradient from the teal to the gray. It's the least gross to the eyes for me. And also, these cars don't have the best regulations to go along with them. The design of the car itself is just pretty disgusting and really sloppy. Now to the point in the video where I actually have to pick one of these as my number one marquee favorite, best of all, that Michael Schumacher drove. And if anyone knows me at all, you kind of have an idea of where I'm going with this. But it's actually going to be the no, never mind. That was a horrible joke to make. I should not have made that joke. It's going to be the Benetton 192. Now, this was extremely difficult to pick between the Benetton and the Jordan. The Jordan is so nice, but there's just something about the Benetton that I really do like, and I think with liveries, like I said before, very subjective. There's just something about liveries that you love that just, they say something to you. They're calling your name. They're like, I am the best. You love me. This is by far my favorite livery. Just looking at it, it gives me like a good feeling inside. So yeah, for me, number one, Benetton 192, the best looking car that Schumacher ever drove, period. So yeah guys, that is that video in the books. I had a really good time actually making that video. I learned a lot about Schumacher that I didn't know already before, and I hope any of you out there who don't know that much about F1 learned a little something today. But yeah, thank you so much again guys for all your continued support. It's been absolutely incredible to see what the channel has kind of grown into so early on. But yeah, don't forget to follow us up on Twitter at the Apex F1. It's kind of how you know when I'll be uploading and stuff like that, so be sure to check that out. Don't forget to lick the stamp and send that subscribe button and tap that notification bell so you know when I make an upload, it'll tell you. And don't forget to drop a like, comment down below what you think was your favorite of these liveries that we looked at today. I could be completely wrong. You may disagree with me completely, but this has been Apex F1. Thank you guys so much again for watching, and peace out.